Welcome back to Cottage Farmstead. If we haven't met before, I'm Rebecca. And it's another month here on the homestead, which means we have another Azure Standard pickup. In the boxes this month, I ordered a few items that I have not purchased before, as well as some items that I haven't shared before in previous videos. So I thought I'd take you on a tour of what we got in our boxes this month. But first, I wanted to talk a little bit about how I determined what I wanted in our prudent reserve, or our prepper pantry, if you would like to call it that. So like I mentioned in a previous video this year that I'll link above and below, we do have some long-term food storage in our basement, and we like to have duplicates of a lot of items. We like to have, 20 pounds or so of each variety of bean that we like to cook with. But sometimes it seems a little bit of a mystery of like, what should you have in your long-term food storage? So in creating our long-term food storage plan, the first thing that I'm keeping in mind is, what do Farmer Nathan and I eat? We do eat a fair amount of beans and rice and chickpeas and whole grains. So those are things that I am going to have in our long-term food storage, and those are things that are very easy to buy in bulk and have a lot on hand. But because it is things that we do eat regularly, I know how to cook with them. So if there was any sort of scenario where like that's all I had, I'd know how to cook them and cook them in a lot of different ways. Secondly, since we are eating those items regularly, I know that nothing in there is going to go stale or rancid on me because I'm eating them with regularity. Second thing I'm keeping in mind when I'm creating our long-term food storage plan is, what am I able to raise and grow right here on our homestead? So we do have a large vegetable garden, but we also have chickens for eggs and meat, and we have cows for beef. So in our long-term food storage, I don't have a lot of things like freeze-dried eggs or meat, as I'm able to have a steady supply of those on hand just from what we have in the pasture. Same thing with our vegetable garden. I know that I'm able to raise year-round here in the South different types of vegetables to supplement our diet. So I'm not super concerned about having a big stash of canned vegetables on hand, as I'm able to grow a fair amount. What I am keeping in mind is how to preserve the stuff coming out of my garden. So I'm going to have things like vinegar and extra salt, extra canning lids, citric acid, and other items that I need for canning and other forms of food preservation, so that I'm able to preserve what we're growing out in the garden rather than buying cases of canned vegetables and fruits. So other than just basic pantry staples that we buy in bulk and keep a good supply on hand, and making sure I have what I need to preserve any produce that we have coming out of our garden, I don't have a whole lot of extras that I keep in our long-term food storage. The one exception is powdered milk. So we don't have a dairy cow at this time, and while we could go without drinking milk for an extended period of time, it is nice to have a little bit of milk for when you're doing some of your baking. So you might need a 1/4 cup of milk for making cornbread or something like that. And it's hard to substitute that in your recipes. So we do have some powdered milk that just sits in our long-term food storage, just in case that we do need to have something like that on hand to make baking a little bit easier. But otherwise, everything that is in our long-term food storage is stuff that we are eating and rotating and cycling through. So what you see me referencing behind here on the computer screen is a Google Doc that I created when we were starting to get our long-term food storage up and running. I went through and listed the different dry goods that we already like to have in our pantry, and then took note of like, okay, I need 10 more pounds of this, 15 more pounds of that, so that I knew what I needed to put in my Azure orders or pick up from the grocery store gradually over time. And then I'm able to keep track of what I have. So when I go down in the basement and I pull out another 5-pound bag of, say, rice, I know to come over here and mark, I need to buy another 5 pounds of rice next time I'm putting my Azure order in. So it just helps me keep organized without having to keep it all here in my brain or take an afternoon and inventory everything in the basement. This is just a nice way to have a running list of what I have down there and what I want to have down there. We haven't fully completed our long-term food storage. We are hitting really, really close. I think we are about 5 pounds shy on our salt, about 5 pounds shy on our powdered milk, and I'd like to get a few more sleeves of canning lids. But otherwise, we are getting pretty close. It's taken us about 10 months to build up the supply that you will see in a moment down in our long-term food storage. So this isn't something that you have to go rush out and get all of it at one time. You can have it trickle in over several months, help it fit into the budget a little bit easier, while also building some resilience with some long-term food storage. So with some of the logistics out of the way, let's take a look at what came in the boxes this month. So first up is this big jug of apple cider vinegar. This has been the best price that we have found for organic apple cider vinegar, and we go through about a gallon every 3 months or so. And this is part of our long-term food storage. So I have a couple other gallons to keep down in the basement. So when I open a new one, I know that I need to put this in our Azure order to get it the following month to keep our backups stocked up. And last month, I'm pretty sure I mentioned that we got some of the Dutch processed cocoa powder, and we really did like it. And luckily, we're not able to find organic Dutch processed cocoa powder. And it's pretty comparable in price to the local Mennonite bulk goods store. It's about $1.25 more per pound, so it's actually not that much more expensive to get a quality product. This month I just got a pound. I think next month I ordered 5 pounds so I could start having a little bit more of a discount on the bulk price. And we got some more buckwheat groats. We like the hulled buckwheats to mill into flour and incorporate into a lot of our gluten-free baking. It is my secret weapon for creating delicious gluten-free baked goods. I'll link down below to a blog post that I wrote recently about how to use buckwheat groats in your gluten-free baking, in case that is something you're interested in. Next up is the big box here. And here we have a lot of chocolate chips. So in previous videos, we were buying a big 5-pound bag of chocolate chips, but unfortunately the droughts in Africa, where about 80% of the world's chocolate comes from, have finally caught up to the price of chocolate. So the 5-pound bag of chocolate chips doubled in price, unfortunately. So I was looking on their website to try and find an alternative chocolate that didn't have soy in it that I would be able to eat, and these happened to be on sale, so I bought a whole bunch of them. Hopefully the price of these remains stable, but we'll see if we have to decrease our chocolate intake for the next year while the next cacao crop grows out. Next up is a 5-pound bag of Himalayan pink sea salt. This is going into the long-term food storage to have it in our rotation. I think I need about another 5 pounds to have my goal of 20 pounds in my backlog. So this will get us one step closer to being fully stocked on salt. So while I don't have to eat 100% gluten-free, I still have to eat mostly gluten-free. So I needed another bag of cup for cup or measure for measure gluten-free baking flour. And they really do have one of the best prices on a lot of the gluten-free products. So I got another, I think this was a 4-pound bag of this, which will last me a couple of months of baking. Then I've been eating a lot of pumpkin seeds as my snack lately, so I got another pound of this to have it on hand for snacking. It's also really good on salads this time of year. So I also just started buying the powdered milk that we want to have in our food storage, like I mentioned earlier. And this is the first pound of, I think I want to have probably about 5 pounds on hand. So over the next couple months, some of this will be trickling in. Then the last bean that I want to have a bulk supply of are white beans. So we have a bulk supply of our chickpeas, we have a bulk supply of our black beans now. And so it's time to start focusing on the white beans that we love in our soups so much. So I got a 5-pound bag this month. I'll probably get another 5 or 10-pound bag next month, depending on the budget, and start building up our storage supply of our white beans. I had a little bit of extra money in our Azure budget this month, so I stocked up on their white wine vinegar. It's just so good in salad dressings and topping greens. We love the sweet flavor that their brand of white wine vinegar has. So I got another bottle to have in our stash, even though I don't necessarily need to be restocking it just yet. Also got another 2-pound bag of all-purpose einkorn flour. I've been experimenting with consuming long fermented sourdough einkorn. And so far, for the most part, I'm able to eat a little bit of the gluten that's in the einkorn without any negative side effects. So when I want things like bread products, I'm able to make them fermented with sourdough and einkorn. And when I'm doing things like cookies and pancakes, I am usually eating them gluten-free. So I do a mixture of both to not overload my system, but it is nice to be able to have some bread products back in our diet again. Next up is butter. So we have been buying butter at Aldi for the last couple months, as they do have an organic option there. We started looking at buying it locally again, and the price has gone up yet again on local butter, and it's priced us out of being able to purchase it. So I went on to Azure's website to see if they carried some butter that was a reasonable price that might be competitive with the Aldi prices, and this one actually is competitive and about $1 cheaper per pound than the Aldi butter. So I figured I would get a pound to try, see what we think of it, and then maybe next month I order this in bulk. And lastly, since I did have a little bit of wiggle room in our Azure budget this past month, I stocked up on another essential oil that I wanted to have in our stash. Got some clary sage. I think this one was on sale, and I had a few extra dollars that I could spend, as we try to spend between $150 and $200 a month just on Azure, and try not to go over that amount. And this past month I didn't have as much I needed to stock up on, so I was able to get a few extras like the white wine vinegar and the essential oil. And then another thing that I started stocking up on as we are now entering the summer is different things for grilling on the grill. So I purchased a couple months ago some hot dogs. I got a pack of bratwurst this time to have things on hand for those summer cookouts. Well, this is everything that we got in our box this past month. So let's take it down into the basement and restock our long-term food storage. Well, I hope it was helpful to see how we determined what we wanted in our long-term food storage, as well as fun to see what arrived in our Azure Standard box this past month. If you'd like more videos on how we manage our long-term food storage or other things that we keep down here in our basement stores, feel free to comment down below any questions that you might have. And with that, I'll catch you next week.